And welcome back to another episode of Massholes with Mics. Good news, guys. You got 4 months off of us and then 2 episodes within a week. This one is not football. I promise you, the Patriots still haven't done anything. Maybe a little bit of movement there, but we're going to focus on baseball today. The hot stove is burning, kind of dying out, to be honest with you. The major moves have been done, and the Red Sox offseason has not gone according to a lot of fans' plans. So with me, as you can tell if you're watching on YouTube, we have Jaclyn and Jordan joining myself, Jeremy. We're gonna get right into it. So let's start with just the offseason at large. Some people, Jeremy, would label this offseason as a failure. I'm interested to see what you guys think, and then I will come in with my points after. But Jaclyn, let's start off with you here.
I would say it's not entirely a failure only because they extended Devers. If they hadn't done that 10-year extension with him, I would have classified this offseason as a failure solely because of the amount of people who left that also could have been traded midway through the season and gotten, some value from them. Most notably, the JD Martinez leaving and Nathan Eovaldi leaving. I think that they should have traded them in the middle of last season just to get something back from it. And then obviously with Xander leaving as well. Very sad, but only because they extended Devers, I would say it is not a failure.
Jordan, I know, obviously, we have talked a lot at length in the chat about the Xander Bogaerts contract and when he left for the Padres. Interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think Jaclyn does make some good points in terms of selling off. Maybe not about Bogaerts specifically, but about a bunch of players.
Yeah, I mean, as it pertains to Bogarts, I think the issue with that is it got to the point that it did, to the point where you left yourself susceptible to losing him in free agency. I have absolutely zero gripes with them not giving him 11 years, 280 million. That's a stupid contract, and San Diego will hate that by year 3 or 4 of it because he's already regressing. He's not going to be a shortstop long term. But anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, I mean, they were, I think, 2 games out of the wild card race at the trade deadline last year. So at the end of the day, like, I understand the whole like kind of half buying, half selling kind of ordeal, but the moves they made really kind of didn't make a ton of sense. Like, I liked the Tommy Pham acquisition. He didn't really pan out. Reese McGuire, I did not necessarily like, aside from getting Jake Diekman off the roster, and he ended up being awesome. They just were so banged up last year. It was really hard to kind of sustain any sort of momentum. Evaldi regressed because he was hurt. His fastball dropped to like 94 miles an hour. JD was terrible till September. Xander Bogaerts was basically 40-year-old Ichiro Suzuki from June to September. So, like, as far as this offseason is concerned, though, because of the Devers extension, and I'm going to be very generous with my grade because I'm the eternal optimist of Red Sox Twitter. So I honestly, I think it's like a solid B offseason, and that's honestly counting. Like, you can't really blame them for Trevor Story getting hurt in the offseason because, I mean, that was something that you didn't plan on going into it. It was something that came up while he was ramping up, and that kind of threw a wrench in things. But I mean, like, they lost JD, Justin Turner came in, adequate replacement. Nathan Eovaldi left. Corey Kluber's not really an adequate replacement, but if we're talking strictly, what Eovaldi looked like when he left versus what Kluber looked like in Tampa Bay, that is an adequate replacement. They got to do something about shortstop, though. But then Devers' extension automatically kind of nixes losing Bogarts, in my opinion. So that's why I give it a B. And obviously, the bullpen's much better, too.
We'll definitely get to grades in terms of individual people. I know that we have some thoughts on Chaim Bloom and Red Sox ownership. I guess that's not individual people, but you get what I'm saying. This offseason pissed me off beyond belief. I was so upset with the way that things panned out. And I think it honestly would have been a little bit more palatable, interested to see what you guys think, if I hadn't heard the Danny Ainge type of rhetoric that the Red Sox were interested in like 60 different guys. They were really positive on being able to re-sign certain guys. Like, they really felt like they were, the last guys out. They were really, it was like the Celtics with Durant, we finished second. Okay, congrats. You didn't get the guy. Like, it felt like it kept happening over and over and over. And if you wanted to tell me, listen, we weren't that close. We weren't. I'm sorry. We tried. He was on our radar. We couldn't get him. I would have been like, all right, you know what? I'm mad at Chaim Bloom for not spending, or I'm mad at John Henry for not spending. This was miles more just infuriating for me to hear you just missed out on Zach Eflin. Who was the other guy? Jose Abreu, I think that they were close in on, but then
Andrew Heaney, too.
Yeah, exactly. Just go on down the list. There were so many guys where I'm like, just get them. Just get it. It's not that hard. You're the Boston Red Sox. You print money like it's nothing. You wipe your ass with $100 bills. Just go and spend the extra $10 million, even if it's a slight overpay. I promise you, the fan base will be okay with it. Yeah, they may yell at the contract later, but you got the guy. And it just felt like they just kept missing out on guys time after time after time. And that was honestly that was what was so frustrating to me. I couldn't stand it whatsoever.
I think the tough pill to swallow right now as a Boston sports fan in general, not just with the Red Sox, but also with the Patriots, I've seen this. We're just not that guy anymore. You know what I mean? We're just not that guy who people want to hang out with. We're not that team that people want to sign with. And that's something that's really difficult when you're a major market team. You have an incredible, insanely passionate fan base. You can't treat this team like it's the Tampa Bay Rays. You can't treat this team like it's some small market team in the middle America. Like, this is Boston sports, and you have to treat it as such. And it's a tough pill to swallow when, free agents just don't want to sign here. They just don't.
And I understand that there was a whole geographical component to it. I kept hearing that. I think Heaney was from Texas. I know Eflin was from the Tampa area. We definitely talked about that at length. But, at a certain point, cash does talk. Just overpay if you have to. Just go and get the guy for me. I'm begging you. It's not that hard. They did make some signings. I'm not going to pretend like they didn't. Yoshida coming over from Japan. We all argued in our chat, Jordan, myself, a couple others, we should just get the all-Japanese team and just get everybody in from over there, because honestly it might be a more entertaining product at this point. The Story injury, I'm going to address quickly and say that there were problems with his elbow before he ever signed here, if I'm not mistaken. So irregardless of, I understand that they could not have predicted that he was going to get hurt. They couldn't have made him get the surgery sooner because he didn't feel the pain back then. But guess what? You knew that this was almost a ticking bomb in his elbow, that it was going to be a problem, that he was going to need surgery at some point. It was basically a guarantee. Now it's just at the worst possible time, and that just makes it hurt that much more. There's a reason the team stayed away from him in free agency 2 years ago, and you're kind of seeing why. That was what was so... Again, I keep coming back to the word infuriating. I can't find a better word without swearing consistently. It's just so maddening to see all of these moves and you're that close, or something just didn't break our way. It's like, well, if enough of these happen, maybe it is a pattern. It's not just bad luck. It's not just circumstance. Maybe, you know what, you didn't do a good job, and that's kind of where I'm at this point. But Jordan did start with the grades. Let's just kind of go into that right now. I know he gave a team grade. So, Jordan, it comes down to the ownership versus front office split, in my opinion. I would like you to give me a grade for Chaim Bloom and maybe a grade for John Henry / Tom Werner and all these guys. So, yeah.
It's tough to grade ownership because they did pony up the dough for Rafael Devers. And, at the end of the day, that's what we all wanted them to do, and maybe potentially started getting very pessimistic about the ability to open the wallet, or not ability to, but the willingness to open the wallet to him. They didn't do it for Bogaerts, but Bogaerts is 30 compared to Devers. I think he's 26 years old. So there's a little bit of a difference in that regard. So I don't really, it's tough to grade the ownership. You kind of have to just look at it and say it kind of cancels each other out. Devers, you lost Bogaerts, but then you also paid Yoshida a ton of money as well. I'd say probably C to C plus for ownership, just because you still got Devers, you still paid Yoshida. So that is a lot of money they invested in those two players in particular. They also dramatically overpaid Kenley Jansen. So they got a closer, one of probably the 10 best ever to do it, 15 best ever to do it. So they spent a lot of money. They just didn't bring Bogaerts back. They didn't bring JD back. But like I said, they adequately replaced some of the guys. So I'd say probably a C, C plus on John Henry, and I'd stick with a B for Chaim Bloom.
Jaclyn?
I just want to remind everyone, John Henry is a billionaire. He's $4 billion is his net worth. He owns Liverpool. He owns the Red Sox. He owns the Penguins. He owns a new concert stadium outside of Fenway Park for some reason, because Fenway is not a good enough concert stadium. He owns the Boston Globe, which I did not know that until I just did a little bit of research on it. Also, Fenway Sports Group owns Nesson, and they own a NASCAR company. They own so much, and you're telling me...
Sorry, I was going to say they also want an NBA team when the NBA inevitably expands to 32 teams.
Like, you're telling me that they can't pay these, they can't be the Padres and spend so much money on these teams. The cap, not an issue when you're John Henry and you're a billionaire. That's all I'll say on that matter. Chaim Bloom, as I referred to earlier, is just treating this team like they're Tampa Bay. And I don't know a single Tampa Bay fan, so I think that speaks something about the way that he managed that team, and what he's turning this team into, personally. And this is also the caveat of, I'm a very casual fan. Like, I love the Red Sox. Like, I do watch them, but like, I don't, follow baseball in the broader sense of the word, throughout all of the teams like I do football. And seeing this like defeat of this team, especially now that I'm located in the New York area and the Mets and the Yankees are spending millions and billions of dollars on these people, is frustrating. Anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Frustrating is absolutely well put. My grade for Chaim Bloom is a D-, and the only reason that it's a D- is because he got my second favorite player in baseball to join the team, in Justin Turner. I love Justin Turner. I'm very happy he's here. I don't give him props for re-signing Rafael Devers. I put that in John Henry's camp. Chaim Bloom didn't do anything. Henry got booed and heckled at his own stadium in the Winter Classic, where his team was the visiting team, and said, I don't like to get bullied like this. Let's just go pony up the money. Or however he says it in his slug-like fashion. He got heckled into signing Rafael Devers. If you want proof that bullying works sometimes, this is it. This is as close as it's ever going to get. I'm telling you right now. Because I don't think that he wanted it. In his perfect world, he would not have signed Rafael Devers. In his perfect world, he wouldn't have come close to that. He would have given him the Matt Olson contract or whatever they offered him the first time. I think Matt Olson's 8 for $168 or something like that, Jordan? $21 million a year? I think I think that was their original offer to him, and he was like, What are you offering me? And I think if in his perfect world, that's the only offer he would have given him. Maybe a slightly more to 200, 230, I think is what he ended at before the end of the year, and then he gave it to him in the new year because he got heckled, like I said. Henry is a weird one because I have long thought that he has been willing to pony up money for players. I mean, we saw he paid Hanley and Sandoval a pretty penny. He was always willing to shell out for Ortiz, paid Pedroia. You can go on down the list. It feels like the more apathetic that he gets to this team, the more that it just becomes a business investment as opposed to a team or sports team. He doesn't care. He really doesn't. He'll funnel whatever money that you want him to, but if Chaim Bloom can convince him that he can get the same amount of production as from players A, B, and C as he could to player D, and he could pay A, B, and C a third of the money, he's going to do it. And he doesn't care. Like, I honestly don't know if he knows what goes on in the day-to-day operations of the Red Sox. Sam Kennedy does. Chaim Bloom does. I don't think John Henry does. I don't think he wants to know. That's kind of where I land on him. Grading him, again, a D. Like, I'm not gonna be nice to either one of these guys. I think they've royally flubbed this. It was hard coming off of last last place finish, where I think he had the worst attendance that he's ever had for Henry at the gate. Like, fans were just not showing up down the stretch.
Yeah, not counting 2020 and 2021 because of the no attendance in 2020 and the limited capacity at the start of 2021.
A great point. Like, outside of those 2 years, this was his lowest attendance ever. I thought that he was going to feel that because you hit him where it hurts, his checkbook, and he was going to try and be like, you know what, let's invest. I was wrong. Like, I don't know. I understand he got Devers. I get it. It's a rich contract, but I'm not going to give anyone on that team, least of all Chaim Bloom, props for re-signing your own guys. That's what you should do. That's the whole point of baseball. That's why they have 80 bajillion arbitration years. Then you go sign him to a massive contract, or if you're Alex Anthopoulos, a ridiculously small contract, and you keep them forever. This is all I ask as a fan. I don't want to be the Rays where they're coming. It's a revolving door of players. Jaclyn's right. One of the other problems I have with Bloom. Sorry, Jordan. I know you've been trying to talk. I'll be very quick with this last.
No,
point.
I haven't been. I'm just sitting here.
Okay. What it feels like they're signing everybody to 1 and 2 year contracts and short-term contracts with large AAV. That's not terrible. But the problem is you run into a bunch of guys who are in contract years, and that could go one of two ways. Either they're going to way outperform their contract trying to get the next one, or they're really going to suck. I don't know how many guys are signed beyond next season. Do we a flat number on that?
Devers is.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute.
Devers, Story, Sale.
Are we counting arbitration, guys?
No, I'm kind of.
Like,
I don't know.
Would Verdugo count?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, give me a second.
All right, he's doing his magic. But, like, my point being, it feels like they're signing, if you're going to go get a veteran, they're going Tommy Pham, expiring deal. Kike Hernandez, only a 1-year extension. Nate Eovaldi was in a contract year, didn't re-sign him. JD Martinez, go on down the list. Feels like they're really banking a lot on guys are going to have career years, and hopefully we can overachieve. Because as far as I'm concerned, this team finished last year, and they didn't make any real market improvement. Bullpen's a little bit better. Lineup is a whole lot worse. Pitching staff might be a little healthier. Like, wow. That's really supposed to get me to want to come to the park. I get to watch Rafael Devers and 8 bums take the field every day. Like, wow. So enjoyable. Chris Sale's going to get hurt again. I stalled enough for
Don't say that.
Okay, so I'm looking at, because I basically, over winter break, because I have no life, I made a bunch of spreadsheets because, again, I have no life. But, like, so Yoshida and Devers are both controlled through at least 2025. Cassis is. Reese McGuire is. Rob Refsnyder is under control through 2024. So is Verdugo. Brian Bayo and Garrett Whitlock is through at least 2024. Barnes, Joely Rodriguez, and Corey Kluber all have a club option for 2024. Justin Turner has a player option for 2024. Chris Sale has a vesting option for 2025, but he is under control through next season, as is Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen. So a good amount of the roster is at least under control through 2024, and a decent amount through 2025, especially the guys like Yoshida and Devers and Cassis who you're trying to build around anyway. So I think a big part of why they're going with all these short-term deals is when you look in the minor league system, and I know it's proven over prospect in a lot of cases, but they were really high on Marcelo Meyer. He's probably 2-ish years away, so you're not going to go out and get a Carlos Correa for 8 to 10 years. I thought maybe you get him once the Mets contract fell through. I was thinking 4 years, opt out after 2. He hits the market again at 30. But obviously he went, what was it? It ended up being 6 years or 8 years with the
six for 200, I believe. 6
for 200, and then like four vesting options to make it to 10 years. I just think they're kind of trying to buy time until that next wave of, cream of the crop minor league talent comes up. Like I said, with Meyer, Miguel Blaze,
but
guys like that. So,
but you're the Red Sox. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't. I'm sorry, Chaim. I know you love your freaking prospect pool. The Dodgers don't have to do that. The Dodgers can go out and sign anybody they want and still have the pool to back it up. But they can still trade guys if they want to go get a Max Scherzer and a Trey Turner. Yeah, I understand they didn't win a World Series, but they did. Keibert Ruiz and a bunch of other guys that were really good, if I'm not mistaken, right? They pushed all their chips into the middle to get those two guys. Scherzer was gone after a year.
Yes.
Yeah, and they still have a ton of prospects left. They're okay.
And they're a hell of a lot more fun to watch than
what I will say, though, in fairness to Chaim Bloom, is when he took over in 2019 or end of 2019, early 2020, that range of time, they were one of the worst farm systems in baseball, with a disgruntled superstar that they had to trade, an aging, high-priced pitcher in David Price, an injured Chris Sale. Like, he had to kind of finagle his way around it. And I do think when you look back at the Mookie Betts trade, I think not trading Price and Betts separately kind of screwed them a little bit. They should have probably just traded Mookie to the Dodgers, gotten guys like Dustin May or Josiah Gray back, and then traded Price, because there were other teams that wanted David Price. I know he had a no trade clause, but like St. Louis wanted him, and he almost signed there in 2016. And I don't see why he wouldn't have wanted to go there in 2020. The Angels wanted him. It's just like, that is the one thing about that trade specifically that I think they kind of screwed up. on, and also not getting a
But
pitcher in return. But that is what it
I
is.
was going to say, for a guy who's very good at supposedly evaluating minor league talent, that's why he's got this ridiculous farm system. You got Alex Verdugo. Jeter Downs is gone now. Connor Wong is a fringe MLB guy at this point, more of a quadruple A player at this point. Like, you didn't do well for yourself in the return, and I can only get over that Gratterall kid still throwing 100. Now, I think he's had arm problems, so I'm not going to necessarily talk too much about
he has had arm problems and he's a reliever, but ultimately, I mean, nobody knew that all of minor leaguers, except for 40-man guys and like maybe 10 additional players, were going to lose an entire year of development because of COVID. Like, literally, Jeter Downs was a top flight prospect with the Dodgers and with the Reds before he got traded to Boston, and then 2020 happened. He didn't play. I know he was at the alt site for a little bit, but he barely played 2020. Connor Wong barely played in 2020. Even guys like Jarren Duran and Tristan Cassis didn't play very much in 2020. So they lost a year of development, and that's why it's kind of tough to grade like the return in terms of the prospects. Like, Verdugo's a good player.
But other prospects aren't
great,
having the same problem, right? They're
yeah,
still
they
developing fine in other
Kelenic
systems.
is one of the worst players in the major leagues right now, and he was
the Mariners kid.
He's really, really bad.
But you got J-Rod next to him, who just made his debut too. Like,
yeah, J-Rod. I mean, but J-Rod's also a generational center fielder, so there's
I know, but you traded away a generational player, and you knew that you were never going to get enough ponies to match up to the stud that you gave away. But I would expect more than one pony to be around 3 years after that trade. I would.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a huge part of why they shouldn't have traded Betts and Price together. They would have gotten more if they just traded them separately.
That's fair. All right.
Because they also traded half of Price's contract, so that also killed the return, getting the $16 million off the books on David Price.
We've already kind of talked about my frustration with the team. Should fans be upset with the way that they're going, though? Long term, short term, take it however you want. Jaclyn?
I would say short term, yes. Long term, maybe. I think for me right now, my biggest concern are these pitchers, because it feels to me like what they've done the past 2 years is rely on Chris Sale to be healthy enough to play again and return and be this ace. And he's played a whopping 11 games over the past 2 seasons. Like, that is just not sustainable to keep relying on Chris Sale, who is one, aging, and two, feels like he just like walks into a room and gets injured. And so it's just, that part is really frustrating. They brought in James Paxton, who also didn't play a game last season. So it's
hurt in his first rehab start too.
Yes. So it's just, that's the pitching situation is scary. And for a team, they just need to be able to bring in a lot of runs. And I'm not sure how they're going to do this season with that. But longer term, if Jordan's correct and this farm system is going to be impeccable, then our team's going to be great in 5 years. 5 years from now, may not have as many fans.
I was going to say, Chaim Bloom won't be around to see that team in 5 years.
I was thinking more like 2 years, but 5's fine too. They'll be great in 5 years too.
Jordan, should fans be upset?
I think they have a right to be, especially because of, like you said, they were in last place last year, and a lot of us, and even myself included, I didn't necessarily want them to go out and spend, a boatload of money aside from at least extending Devers, and they at least did that. But I wanted them to be more aggressive than they were. I didn't want them to wait for the market to be dictated. I wanted them to go out and dictate the market, and they just didn't do that. That is where my biggest frustration lies.
It's a Bill Belichick approach right there.
Yeah, I really did. I thought they were going to go out and they were going to be super aggressive, and they were going. I only got optimistic about Bogaerts because Jared Carrabis started tweeting all those random videos of him, and I was like, oh, okay. But I never necessarily. It just seemed like, once it hit free agency, that it was probably very unlikely that he was going to come back. But I understand the frustration. I think people are getting a little bit too emotional about it, because I do think this team has a pretty decent amount of talent. And like Jaclyn said, her pitching point is incredibly valid. This very high ceiling, very, very, very low floor. Like, as great as it could be, it could also be one of the worst in the league, especially if Sale gets hurt. So it's I understand the frustration, but I do think people need to kind of relax a little bit.
Fair enough. I'm not going to relax. I hate the way this team is going. I really do. It bothers me. It really does. The roster construction, the fact that we haven't really had a real first baseman until this season, and Chaim Bloom's been around for what, 3 years right now. He can't figure out how to go and we have. Do you know we have one other center fielder other than Kike right now, and Kike may have to play shortstop. I know there's a rumor out there that may be true at the time that you're listening to this, that they're looking at Adam Duvall, but Jarren Duran is the only other center fielder on the roster. Holy crap, man! Like,
I mean, Ref Snyder can play center, so I guess technically, but, yeah.
It's just getting uglier. I mean,
hey,
just...
would you rather? I mean, they have 1.5. I'll call Ref Snyder half a center fielder. They have 1.5 center fielders, 0 shortstops.
Zero shortstops, 0 catchers, about 55 corner infielders, a left fielder and a right fielder that can't play defense. Like, the balance on this roster is god awful. It's god awful. It's terrible. A bullpen that's leaky or not, we don't know. And then you got the rotation that just seems very injury prone, and Jordan already detailed how boom or bust they are. Like, I'm just annoyed that it feels like we're 3 years into this project. We should be seeing something by now. And we've gotten one incredibly fluky, but incredibly fun ALCS appearance. And outside of that, it's been last place in 2020, last place last year. Really heading towards last place this year because the Orioles look like they're on the come up. You got the Rays who made the playoffs last year. The Blue Jays should be good. The Yankees should be good as well, unfortunately. Like, doesn't mean they're going to win the whole thing, but it does mean that they're better than you, which means, guess what, Red Sox fans? You got to shut up and take it again this year. Like, that's going to suck. That's really going to suck to have to do that. Walk into Yankee Stadium and just get pulverized again. Or Toronto was 16-3 against the Red Sox last year. 16-3, including that, like, 27-run game that they had against them. Oh my God, it's going to be awful.
Just be thankful that there's only 10 games against each division opponent this year.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
So the Red Sox got what? I'm trying to do the math. 36 fewer games against the division this year. And outside of the division last year, they were like 20-something games above 500. So
yeah, we're just going to get mashed by the Dodgers and the Braves instead this year. But we'll make up ground against like the Nationals.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What I find what really sucks about the direction of this team is just how much, like, even like, no matter what you think of Trevor's story or how you feel about his ability to live up to his contract, him not being there for at least the first 2 months of the season, that sucks. Like, that sucks. I remember
it's because it was Bloom's big free agent fish. Like, this is the guy that he was like, this is the next guy. We heard all of last year. He's going to replace Bogaerts when Bogaerts walks because Bogaerts wants too much money. He's not good defensively. We got a really good defender, a guy that can mash, and he's going to be the shortstop of the future, and he's gone. And I'm like, why?
Yeah. I remember a few weeks ago, I was, putting together, one of my million spreadsheets over winter break, and I looked at the lineup, and I'm like, Story, even if he's not like, the 2018, 2019 Trevor Story, where he's, definitely an all-star caliber player, hits like almost 40 home runs, like, he's still going to be a pretty damn good middle of the order piece, and he's not there for 2 months. So now you're going to be relying on Tristan Cassis to play at, not an all-star level, but a rookie of the year level at the very least. You're going to have to rely on Kike Hernandez to revert to 2021 form, and you're going to have to rely on guys like Jarren Duran, or if you sign Adam Duvall, like guys like that, to have a big impact for at least the first 2 months until Story's back. And I mean, that's just on the conservative, or not the conservative side, but the front end of his time, the eternal optimist side of his injury timetable. So it could be a fun year. It could be a really, really, really not fun year. So there's a lot of gray area there for the Red Sox, and I don't really know where I sit on that right now.
It feels to me like they have to win games 3-1, 3-2, 2-1, stuff like that, and keep it close, because if they get into a track meet, they are porked.
Yeah, and the rotation is good enough, and this pitching staff is good enough to win games 3-1 and 2-1 and 4-2. It's just a lot has to go right, especially with health. Like, Chris Sale will be good if he's healthy. James Paxton will be at least, a solid 3-starter if he's healthy. But the thing is, they got to be healthy, and they haven't been for a long time. So it's just tough.
Jaclyn, any final thoughts?
Not really. I'm not sad. I'm just disappointed. And I don't know. I really would like this team to be good again so that I stop getting crap from my coworkers. That's all.
It's a good point.
That's
She's in
all.
enemy territory, everybody.
I
It's
am.
going to be
She's behind enemy
tough life out
lines.
there.
I am.
Seriously. All right.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you guys. A little bit shorter of an episode today. Hopefully it's a little bit more palatable. Last one that we had got like 50 some odd views on one of the clips, I think, though. So, hey, we're back and people like it, apparently. So, for Jaclyn and Jordan, I'm Jeremy saying have a good rest of your day, everybody.